Shall we begin?
Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Automatically forgive me for the do-rag that I'm in. It's fairly late. I should have been uploading this video a few hours ago, but a couple technical difficulties kind of held that back. Nevertheless, I am still here for you with tonight's segment. This is the first episode of my channel, the plant-based pedagogy. Ask that you just bear with me through some of the growing pains that are just, are just common with anybody new to the YouTube deal. So I'm not familiar really with being in front of the camera too much, but I'm gonna make my best of it, and most of this is gonna be a voiceover anyway of a lot of the steps, so to speak. It'll be more so you just kind of seeing exactly what I'm doing throughout the kitchen to prepare the meal with just kind of my voiceover in the background. I just wanted to at least start it out this way so you guys kind of know the face behind the channel and just kind of see, who fucking is cooking, so to speak. With that being said, just give you a quick rundown as far as what my channel is going to be, basically. I've been vegan on and off for about 3.5 years now. Fell off for about 3 months twice in those 3 years, just due to like moves, new jobs, and just having time constraints. But consistently for about the last year and a half, I've been pretty consistently plant-based. I hesitate to use vegan because I don't get along with the whole lifestyle. I'm not rocking furs and not wearing leather and things of that nature. I still will be in a fur coat and eat a salad. That's the best way I explain it to people. Sorry, PETA. With that being stated, though, majority of my diet is all plant-based. So basically everything that I eat either comes directly from the ground or is a byproduct of something that has came out of the ground. Nothing that has a face or comes from something with a face. So no dairy, no cheese, no butter, no anything of that nature. Now on this channel, most of my videos that I am going to have are going to be completely vegan, plant-based in themselves, but occasionally, depending on the demand for certain recipes, I might throw a curveball and throw a vegetarian one in there, but I will always notify you and let you know beforehand for those of us that are completely plant-based when or when not a particular recipe is in fact vegetarian versus being actually vegan/plant-based. Tonight, what we're actually going to be making today is we're going to be doing a vegan creamy Alfredo. With sun roasted oven roasted, there's no sun, even though it's like 80 degrees in this bitch, but oven roasted tomatoes with some wilted spinach. Now with this, you can really throw in any types of veggies that you like. If you're a broccoli person, if you want to do some like bell peppers, anything like that, feel free. Just for this particular recipe, for the sake of time and just kind of what I had on hand in the refrigerator. What I had on hand basically is that I'm just going to be basically doing some like oven roasting some tomatoes, wilting them up really nicely, and just kind of pairing them with some spinach and creating like a vegan Alfredo sauce, which we'll get into later in the video, and how I basically accomplished that. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started on this, and we're just going to go ahead and start out with our first step. So yeah. Alrighty, so first things first, we're gonna go ahead and get our oven roasted tomatoes together. I'm gonna go ahead by starting with crackling these with some just pink Himalayan sea salt and some herbs de Provence. Now you can sub whatever salt or blend of either fresh or dry herbs you would like to use for this. I sometimes switch it up and use Italian seasoning myself, but I felt like just giving herbs de Provence a try, as well as coating these with about 2 to 3 tablespoons of oil. Again, of your choice. I use grapeseed for my particular recipe this time just because it tends to have a higher heat point. And I'm going to make sure I just get those herbs really incorporated into the tomatoes and covered completely so that all of them have an even dispersion of the spices all over so it can really permeate. You also want to make sure that you're getting these tomatoes to be all cut side up as best you can. That's really going to help a lot of the moisture evaporate out of the tomatoes to give them an opportunity to really absorb that flavor, but without it being kind of muddled or diluted by the additional moisture. After that point, you're just going to pop them into a 375 degree preheated oven and let them bake a bit while you move on to your next step. Now I put a bit of oil into a pan and got it heated up a bit, and I've chopped up some vegan sausage. I'm trying a new brand by No Evil. I haven't particularly tried this one myself, but I've tried a couple of different plant-based Italian version of sausages. And I just go ahead and put these in the pan and let them brown up a bit. Now, while I let those brown a bit, I'm gonna go ahead and just season them as well to add a little bit more depth in the flavor. I find that some vegan meats tend to just kind of be neutral as far as their tone. They just kind of taste like, well, yeah, so I go ahead and I just season them just to add them a little bit more flavor for my personal preference. I'm gonna go ahead and just give them a little bit of shimmy to allow that spice to kind of incorporate all over them. Oh, one just got out of the pan. We're gonna ignore that. I'm just doing a little bit much for the camera right now, but you know what I mean as far as just shimmying them to get their
kind of the spices incorporated. Let them brown just a little bit. Feel free to just stir them instead of doing the flip thing if you are uncomfortable doing so. Again, here's me just flipping them again to make sure that that's all incorporated. This is a bit after they've browned though, just to make sure that they're not getting too brown on one side. You gotta watch them a little bit carefully because vegan meat does tend to get a little bit dry if you overheat it in a pan. Some of that moisture that naturally comes with it will kind of evaporate to the point to where it gets a little bit chewy. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and set these to the side now and put them in a separate dish while I go ahead and prepare the next step. Now in the same pan that I just cooked that meat in, or vegan meat so to speak, don't want anyone to get mad at me, I'm gonna go add in a little bit of Earth Balance vegan butter and let that begin to melt, get to a good frying, sauteing temperature. And then from that point, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a bit of about maybe a half a cup of diced onions, and I'm gonna allow these to caramelize a bit because these are gonna become kind of part of the base for the Alfredo sauce that I'm gonna make. I find that no matter what Alfredo sauce versions I've tried over the last couple of years, usually they always start with a good base of cream base, onion, salt, and pepper. It's kind of the basics things I know that I'm gonna need to start any good faux Alfredo sauce. So I'll let these kind of caramelize in the pan just a little bit, absorb some of the flavor that's from the meat, while I actually get some water in a medium-sized saucepan to come to a boil. I'm gonna actually boil about 3 cups of potatoes and about a cup of whole cashews. Mine are already put into pieces so that I make it a little bit easier on my food processor because she's an old bitch. At this point, I burned my toe. That's why the camera kind of panned out. But once I got everything under control, I'm gonna bring it to a rolling boil and then gently just kind of take it down to a simmer here in a second. Once it's at a simmer, you're gonna let that simmer there until the potatoes are fork tender, and just go back over to our onions. Check on how they're doing. They're getting a little bit of color, not too crazy, they're not browning up too. And that's also just because I've chosen to use a fairly low heat on this to kind of give me time to prepare my next steps. Once those have fully caramelized, just again gonna do the same thing like I did with the meat, set them off to the side, and then we're gonna prepare and wait for the potatoes and the cashews to just get a bit softer so we can go ahead and add those onions, potatoes, and the cashews themselves to the base so we can begin the basis of this sauce. Now once they have gotten a little bit softer, I'm gonna go ahead with like a slotted spoon and just kind of take them out of that boiling water. Set them to the side because we're gonna go in and pop these right into my food processor. Now the food processor that I have is fairly small and honestly requires me to probably gonna, for this amount, do it in a couple of batches, but that's pretty fine. Basically the basis of this ingredients that we're gonna be using in this are just gonna be a combination of some black pepper, the cashews and potatoes, a little bit of a non-dairy based milk. I put a bit of basil, rosemary. I do have a little bit of a vegan cheese that I personally am putting in there just for a little bit of added depth and flavor, but it's absolutely not necessary. We're gonna go ahead and blend up the cashews and the potatoes first. I find that since it's the toughest part of the basis of it, you wanna kind of get those semi-blended a bit. And then we're gonna add my non-dairy milk to this, doing it in spurts so that it does allow it to incorporate effectively. Again, keep in mind that depending on the size of your food processor, you may have to do this portion in a couple different kind of different little loads that you're gonna have to do. I think I ended up having to do this in 3, but I just didn't film all that portion because it was kind of not pertinent to the video at hand. Adding a little bit more of the milk just to make sure my consistency is right. From that, I also do just add just a dash of Dijon mustard to give it a little bit of kick and a little bit of depth. I'm gonna add in a bit of the spices, which is gonna be onion powder, basil, parsley, a little bit of rosemary, and I believe just some nutritional yeast and tapioca starch, about 2 tablespoons of tapioca starch to just give the sauce a bit of give and kind of gooiness chew that would be similar in cheese. I've now also got a pot of boiling water that I'm getting ready to begin my pasta noodles. Now these are vegan fettuccine noodles, but they are fresh ones. I believe I got these from Whole Foods, but I'm not 100% sure. But long story short, I just wanted to use a fresh pasta for this because I just find that fresh pasta noodles are superior. But feel free to use box pasta if you don't have those. It's just that if you are using the fresh pasta, be aware that it takes significantly less time to cook overall. Maybe I think this batch takes about 3 or 4 minutes before it's ready to be taken out of the water. So just make sure you are keeping a really steady eye on that. So I'm gonna give it a quick stir to make sure it's all being incorporated by all the water. From this point, I'm just going to go ahead and let these things do their thing. When they come to a stopping point and when I feel that they are effectively, fully completed, they've gotten to that al dente stage, we're going to go ahead and in a colander just drain them off. And as soon as you got those all drained out in the colander, go ahead and just add maybe about a tablespoon of oil and coat the noodles just to keep them from sticking while we move on to our next steps. So in the same pot that I just did those noodles in, I'm going to top in maybe another tablespoon of butter. Now my heat was a little too high, so that's why you see it smoking a bit, but I just quickly popped it off of the heat and let it cool down a bit before re-adding it back to the heat and adding about 3 cloves of garlic into this. And I'm just going to let those brown up a little bit. This is going to be added to your dairy-based sauce, which I forgot to add that I added about 2 cups of vegetable broth to that Alfredo sauce as well. So along with the non-dairy milk, you're going to want to add about another 2 cups of vegetable broth to it as well. And that's going to give your sauce enough liquidity that you're going to be able to allow it to kind of bubble here for a second without it burning the potatoes or cashews that are in the base and allowing some of that moisture to evaporate over. Also, the tapioca starch that we added in there a little bit earlier is definitely going to give this a little bit of gooiness chew that, as I said earlier, is just going to allow it to be more quote-unquote cheese-like. And as you can see, our consistency is starting to come together a little bit more. It's thickening up a bit after I've been let it on a low heat and let it do a small simmering boil. At this point, our tomatoes should be about done, and we're going to go ahead and take those out and add them directly to the sauce. Now, I add them to the sauce at this point because I like some of the flavor from the tomatoes and some of those seasonings they've been able to absorb to kind of incorporate into the sauce as well. Even though we added a little bit of basil and parsley into this, again, I just really want the flavor that was imbued into the tomatoes themselves, like the herbs de Provence and some of that pink Himalayan salt, to really marry and infuse into the sauce as well. I'm going to go ahead and chop up roughly about 4 to 5 cups worth of spinach. Now that may seem a bit excessive, but with that, as anyone knows that has cooked any type of green dish, this is really going to wilt down to nothing at all. Once I put that in there and once I kind of fold this into the sauce itself, you'll definitely see how this amount of spinach doesn't look nearly as excessive as what was initially chopped up. So I'm just go ahead and, like I said, fold this into the sauce so that all that heat can get to it and begin to really wilt down the spinach and soften it just a tad. And once we've got that all incorporated, we're just going to go ahead and let our sauce bubble just a little bit while we prepare everything else for the rest of our meal. Toast up our bread if you're having that as well. This sauce at this point is chef kiss, believe me. Now I will say that just due to the potato in the sauce, once this is not hot, it has less of the kind of glossy, saucy appearance to it. It kind of has the same consistency or kind of look not the most aesthetically appeasing, kind of like cold mashed potatoes. But again, if you serve this hot and ready to any of your friends, flavor-wise, it is amazing. It doesn't have any of the starchiness of the potatoes themselves just because such a minimal amount was used in them. But voila, this is our final product. Now this holds about 3 to 4 days depending on the temperature of your refrigerator, and in my particular case, the inhabitants of your home. It only lasts about maybe 1 or 2 days in my house, but it is a great 30-minute weekday special that you can do that is really quick, and you can omit the vegan cheese or the vegan sausage if that's not something that you want to add to it itself and make it a little bit quicker. Again, guys, I'm so sorry about the late upload on this one. I'll definitely be more cognizant of this in the future. We do upload every Monday and Wednesday, so we should be having one coming up here pretty soon. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week. Sometimes